Big face, big screen. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if you're sitting here relaxing and eating your food or if you're here to actually watch me, but you're stuck with me now for the next 30 minutes anyway. Thank you very much anyway if you are here to watch my demonstration. My name is Charlene Flanagan. I'm a makeup artist based in the west of Ireland. I primarily do bridal makeup, and that's what my makeup look today is going to be inspired with, is actually bridal inspired makeup looks. I definitely am more about kind of dewy, glowy skin, kind of bronze-esque, kind of like lovely rose gold and kind of bronzy looking eyes as well. So that's going to be my look for today. I am demoing for Blank Canvas Cosmetics, so primarily the products that I'm going to be using. I'm going to talk a lot about the brushes that are my favourite staples in my brush kit, and using the Master Series palette from Blank Canvas Cosmetics also. So I'm just going to start off with the eyes. When I'm doing makeup myself, I actually always start with the eye makeup. And what I like to do before I do put any eyeshadow or anything onto the eyes is actually colour correct the lids themselves. So I'm using a product here called Right On Eye Band by Kaylin Cosmetics, which are actually here today as well. And I'm using a brush called the F17. So if you like to apply kind of creamy bases onto the eyes, like concealers or primers, the F17 brush by Blank Canvas is literally the best one that I personally find myself. So literally just patting the product all across the face, all across the eye, sorry I should say, just literally tapping that on. And what this basically does is it takes away any of the discoloration that might be on the lid, and it also gives your eyeshadow something to grip onto. So the pigment of your eyeshadow is going to come out much stronger. So literally just pat, pat, pat. Don't sweep the brush kind of back and forward, otherwise that's going to leave lines and streaks on the lid. So you literally just pat it down, and it's literally going to set the product down in place. And when you're using cream-based eyeshadows, that's why a synthetic brush is actually much better than something that's a little bit fluffy and more of a blending style of a brush. If you use the blender style brush when you're using cream-based products, it's just going to look really streaky and it's going to go all over the place, and it's not going to give you that nice finish that you're looking for. So you just pat that all over the lid. And as I said, my look for today is going to be like a rose gold kind of bronzy look. And it's actually, it doesn't matter even if you are a bridal makeup artist or not. This is a very popular look that I often find people love to wear even if they're just going to weddings as a guest. So as I mentioned, the palette that I am going to use is the Blank Canvas Master Series. And if you don't have to be a makeup artist to actually use this palette. It's my go-to for absolutely everything. It contains 12 eyeshadows. 11 of those eyeshadows are matte eyeshadows, which is quite rare to find. Well, it was, at least when the palette first came out. It's contained with 12 neutral tones. So you've got like your pinkier salmon pinks, you've got like your warm orangey browns, then you have one shimmer in your gold, and you have a really light colour in your white, and you have it in like a greyish kind of black as well. So it's literally like a one-stop palette that you could use to bring you from daytime to nighttime for any looks that you might like. So when it comes to blending brushes, and when it comes to any eye makeup look, I generally use 4 brushes. So I use different shapes and sizes for different reasons when you're blending out eyeshadow. Because I personally find that when you're blending colours on top of colours, when you're looking for that nice depth and dimension, if you went in with the same one large fluffy brush for every colour, the colours are just going to sit on top of one another, and then you're not going to see the transition or the difference between each brush. So the different brushes that I love to use, the E20 is one of the newest brushes to the Blank Canvas collection. It is amazing. It's so super fluffy, and it will practically do the blending for you. You literally, it just glides across. Then a staple, actually 2 staples that would be in my kit and I would use for absolutely everybody, is the E26. It's a medium round shaped top brush. So it's really good for getting right into the crease and kind of blending and buffing everything out. And then this little beauty then is the E42. The E42 is more of like a pointed, tapered head. So it allows you to get right into any sort of little details like the crease or the outer corners. You can even blend underneath the eyes with that because of the pointed edge that's on it. And then if you like really kind of blending out kind of the outside smokies or doing any smaller bits of detail, the E10 is amazing as well. So I'm going to use these brushes and show you like when you do layer your eyeshadow what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go in initially and I'm going to use the shade called Core. It's actually very, very light. You'd nearly think, God, that doesn't look like a transition shade at all. But when it's actually placed on the eye, it actually gives a lovely finish. So I'll just get my blending brush and just literally pop that into the crease of the eye. And what this is going to act as, this is going to be like your transition shade. So your transition shade is what helps kind of your lighter and your dark eyeshadows blend well in together. So it just means that it's not really obvious like where your eyeshadows start and stop. So I like to go in and just slightly layer my product up. And when you're doing bridal, I find a lot of brides, they want the smoky, soft look, but they don't want it to look like they're wearing an awful lot of makeup. You just turn your head this way for me. They don't want it to look like they're wearing a lot of eyeshadow. Like, they don't want the glam kind of nighttime look. They still want to look like they're wearing makeup, but not that they're wearing a lot. So that's why your transition colour needs to be more of a light to medium tone rather than the darkest colour in the palette. So when you have that blended up onto the eye, that just carves it and kind of gives you a starting and stopping point. It's kind of like a really, really light pink. I'm not sure whether it's probably not coming up as clear on the camera, but when I start deepening it, it'll make more sense. So what I like to do is I like to build it up on my colours. So the next colour I'm going to go in with is Strut. These were exactly the same colours that I actually wore on my own wedding day. I went for more of a pinkier tone on my eyes because I have a green eye, so it makes the green really, really pop. So because I'm going in with the E26, which is a smaller shape than the E20, it's actually not going to take over as much of an area on the eye. And you just literally blend that back and forth into the crease. And because we put a transition shade on before this colour is literally just going to blend into that, and it's not going to be obvious then where your colours start and stop. As I mentioned earlier, like the colours that are in the palette are so versatile, like absolutely anybody can wear them. There's nothing too orange, there's nothing too pink, they're just so neutral that absolutely everyone can wear them. Like, you could pick this palette up for absolutely any age, any person, and you know that it would work well. So literally just the E26 is really soft and fluffy, and because of the shape of the head on the brush, it allows you to kind of blend really seamlessly, so you don't need to over blend as such. And if you just open up there for me and just look up to the ceiling, I'm using the E26 then for underneath the eyes. So it's important that when you're actually doing makeup underneath the eyes, especially for bridal work, that you don't go too heavy unless the bride has actually specifically asked for it. So using just medium toned kind of neutral colours is enough. So something like Strut, which isn't too pink, which is going to make her look very tired looking. It's just that nice kind of level of salmon kind of tan, and that's just going to give a really super kind of soft look. Again, the darker I'm getting with my eyeshadows, the smaller I'm getting with my brush. So I'm going to go in with a shade called Cocoa, which is more like a reddy toned brown. The other brown that's within in the palette is called Downtown. So they're different in kind of their tones. Downtown is a little bit more dirty, kind of chocolatey brown, and then Cocoa is more of a reddish kind of a brown. So it marries really, really well with the pinkier tones. So what I like to do is I just come in almost at an angle. So I just come in from the outside. Instead of drawing like that full-on triangle on the outside, I just kind of like to give the illusion that it's literally just the outside part of the eye. So it's almost essentially like a thicker kind of a liner look. So you're not given that massive kind of triangle, see, especially for photography. So it's just kind of coming down in a swoop, because the rest of the lid is going to be used for, we're going to put like a nice rose gold colour onto the lid and give a little bit of sparkle. So the E42 is absolutely amazing for clients that maybe have like a smaller or a hooded shaped eye, because it allows you to get right into the crease. Sometimes the E20 or the E26 can be a little bit overpowering on a really small eye, unless you know kind of how to work your brushes, and that's why the E42 is probably one of my top favourites. So I go back in then with the E26 brush and just make sure that I haven't lost any of the colour. It's blended, and make sure that I'm blending the two shades together. And that's really important when it comes to blending your eyeshadows, that you don't overblend. Just make sure that you're kind of marrying your colours together and that colours aren't sitting on top of one another, because then you can see the difference in the shades that you're using. So I'm just going to go in now with the E42, same brush again, getting Cocoa. I'm going to run that underneath the eyes as well. So because again it's got more of a tapered head on it, it's going to get into a much smaller area. You're still going to be able to see Strut that we put on initially, but because of the tapered head on the brush. So just glide that underneath the eyes. And just make sure that you're connecting your corners together. Like, it's really important that you don't, like, that there's not one line going straight up and then another one coming out another way. Kind of just do a little kind of semi-circle off the edge of the eye, and just do more of like a rounded kind of shape, just to give that really soft kind of blended look. It doesn't always have to be about the wings and the wing liner. So again, as I said, we're going for a real rose gold-esque kind of a look. This is a product called by Stila. This isn't the Kitten Karma glitter, this is actually their Shimmer and Glow eyeshadow, which doesn't contain the glitter, but it still has such a beautiful level of shimmer in it. You'll see it now when it goes on the eye. It gives such a beautiful pop of colour. I think it's going to be really big actually this summer now for brides. They're really wanting that rose gold kind of bronzy look. And a brush that is amazing for applying glitter is the E27 brush from Blank Canvas. It's literally super tiny, and it's got like a really small kind of like rounded head on it, so it's good for just packing product onto the lids. So you can probably even nearly see it on my hand, like even the shimmer that's coming off it already. Just close down. So anywhere that I didn't place eyeshadow before, that's where I'm going in now with the rose gold. And I'm literally just dabbing and patting that on. So I'm kind of doing almost like, it's like a broken kind of a half circle. It's not going the whole way across the lid. And what you'll do is grab your brush that you applied the brown with. You don't need to put any product onto it, but literally just the edges of the eyeshadow to just work your way in and just blend that shimmer so that it's not really obvious then where it starts and where it stops. Can you see it? Like, look at it even on the screen, like it's absolutely beautiful. So the E27, if anybody here is a fan of glitter and loves to apply glitter, whether it's loose glitters or whether or not it's like creamy glitters or liquid glitters, I tend to find the applicators that come in glitters just aren't really of good quality, and they nearly push out too much product. And what happens is then you've got an eyelid literally full of shimmer or full of glitter. Isn't it beautiful? It's so nice, it's just so soft. And yet not at the same time, like it's not too over the top. Okay, so open up there for me, Taylor. So now I'm going to do eyeliner. So I think eyeliner is every makeup artist's like bane of their life, like they really struggle with it. And for a long, long time, I was always kind of taught to use angle-shaped brushes when I did my liner. And yeah, fair enough, there are some looks like wing liner and things like that. But I personally find actually a more pencil kind of straight-tipped brush, a little bit like a liquid liner applicator, can sometimes be easier, just because it's a little bit more flexible and it allows you to mould around the eye rather than the angle kind of gives you that straight shape anyway. Some people's eyelids just aren't very straight, or they just don't work well with an angled shaped brush. So I tend to go in with the E28 from Blank Canvas instead. I kind of used it in the beginning for a long time, and then I moved away from it, and now for the past year now I've been absolutely loving it again. So I'm going in with the brown liner, I'm not going in with black, and I'm going in with the E28 brush. And what I like to do is I like to pull the lid up from the brow, and then just use your brush just to draw the line across the eye. And as I said, if a person even has like a really wrinkly eyelid or a really creased lid, this type of a brush just allows you to get right into the area and giving you like that super precise eyeliner look. So browns are definitely gorgeous on bridal work. Like, you can of course use black on the top and use brown on the bottom if you wish either. It's just entirely a personal preference. It depends on kind of the skin tone of the bride as well. So just literally letting that brush, I just love this brush, like it just practically does the work for you. It just draws the line straight across. I feel like I have more control with the brush like this rather than the angle shaped brushes. Just open up there for me, Dana, and if you just look up to the ceiling for me. So I'm going to pop a little bit of brown just into the waterline. So if your bride wants kind of that smoky-esque kind of look, but doesn't want to be too dark, a brown liner in the waterline is a good alternative. From nudes sometimes don't suit everybody, so don't tend to just go for nude like straight away. Sometimes nude can actually make a person's eyes look very kind of porcelain doll-like, and it can make them kind of stand out or pop a little bit too much. So I prefer to go in with more of like a really soft brown and just pop that in the waterline. So it's not too harsh, and it's really wearable. Okay, so it still adds that extra layer of smokiness. So I'm going to do the skin before I put on any mascara on the eyes. So I'm going to start off, I actually have put a base onto Dana's skin, and what I love to use on any of my bridal work is actually a hydration mask by Defleuret. They're actually here today as well. I put this on, this is on Dana's skin, I leave it on for 5 or 10 minutes, And then I do the eyes, and then when I'm ready to do the skin, I get a cotton pad and I literally wipe the mask away. Some people are like so dehydrated that like there's nothing left on their skin by the time you're actually going to wipe it away, and that's nearly a good sign because you know that they needed the hydration. So what hydration basically does is it plumps the skin out, giving the skin a really lovely glow, and it'll just help the makeup to last so much longer throughout the day. It's one of the very few masks that you can literally apply and it doesn't leave like an oily residue on the skin, so you don't need to worry about it not working with your makeup. Like there's nothing literally coming off Dana's skin, so obviously your skin needed a little boost of hydration as well. So like as I said earlier, dewy skin is definitely my favourite look, and I think now coming into spring summer, it's something that we definitely need. So literally just popping some strobe cream all over the skin, and this is just going to give a lovely kind of luminosity. This doesn't change the colour of the skin at all, and this is what I use as my priming agent as well, because it is a moisturiser. I don't tend to use gel-based primers a lot unless a person would have a very textured skin and I feel like I need to smooth the skin out. But the strobe cream literally just works absolutely perfectly. Just pop that all over so it gives the skin really, really gorgeous shine. And when we put the foundation on top, then it's just going to kind of work well together. So I'm using NARS Sheer Glow, and I will be using my favourite brush of all for applying foundation, which is the F20 brush by Blank Canvas. Has anybody here used the F20 before? A few people have. It literally gets your foundation on like so quickly, and you'll find that like there's no streaks left on the skin. So it's a buffer style brush, and I start in the middle of the face and I just use the brush and I just like pat the brush all across the skin. So you don't do like a sweeping motion like this, you literally just buff it on, and that gives that really skin-like finish. So it gives a lovely kind of high definition finish to the skin. It doesn't make the skin look very cakey. Some brushes, what can happen is that when you kind of pack them on, it can make them look a little bit too full coverage, and then you lose that kind of skin look. Whereas the F20 brush just kind of buffs it on and gives that lovely high definition finish. So you start in the middle of the face and then work your way outwards because you want most of the coverage in the centre of the face. So even for yourselves, like it doesn't even have to be in your bridal work. Even for yourselves, using the buffer brush will get your makeup on in 5 minutes in the morning. Now the one tip that I can probably give you about a buffer style brush is that you do need to clean them more regular than like a duo fibre style brush. And I'm going to do a little shameless plug. I actually have my own product with me today, and it's actually for sale on the Blank Canvas stand. It's by Ella and Joe Cosmetics. It's called the Squeaky Clean Brush Cleanser, and it's a spot cleaner for your brushes. So it's an antibacterial spray that will literally wash, antibacterialize and dry your brushes within 2 minutes. So you literally spray your brush, just give it a little wipe on a piece of kitchen paper, and then just leave it to dry for like a minute and a half, and then it's ready for reuse again. So it's so super handy for any makeup artists that are working on the go, maybe are currently carrying around like 10 brush sets with them to be able to carry for each client. This will literally sterilise your brushes in between uses. So you don't have to worry about carrying loads of brushes, or you don't have to worry that if you have a favourite brush, you don't have to worry about any sort of contamination. And it just delays kind of, if you're using it for personal use, it delays the amount of deep cleaning that you have to do with your brushes as well. But this style of a buffer brush definitely needs to be cleaned after every use, because what happens is the makeup kind of seeps kind of in down through the hairs, and then it all starts to get really saturated, and then the hairs will start to go quite matted, and then your brush just won't last as long. If you're not looking after your brushes and cleaning them regularly, then you'll find you won't get as much of a shelf life out of them, whereas if you clean them regularly, you'll get loads of time out of them. So I never put foundation underneath the eyes. It's just kind of a rule of thumb that I've always had. I suffer with dehydration under my eyes quite a lot, and I do know that if you put heavy based products underneath the eyes all the time, you're going to find your eyes are going to be more dehydrated looking. I find foundation just doesn't look the same under the eyes anyway. I like to use a concealer which is maybe a shade or 2 shades lighter than the foundation to give a little bit of brightness. So the brush that I'm using is actually the E45. It's actually an eyeshadow brush, but because it's so fluffy, I like the way that it actually blends under the eye. Because if you've worked on the base of underneath the eye before you've done your skin. You don't want to ruin the eyeshadow that you've put underneath. So what this brush allows you to do, it just allows you to kind of skim across your eyeshadow. It'll also neaten up kind of any rough edges that you might have, but it's not going to remove any of the eyeshadow from underneath the eyes. You can tidy everything up while you're still concealing. So it's the E45, it's one of their newer brushes from the Extra Dimension series. So just literally a nice fluffy style brush. And I think it's actually much nicer to use on your clients, because they don't feel like you're coming at them with this big massive concealer brush, or that like your brush is like really stiff, and then they kind of sometimes feel like their eyes are kind of under pressure, and then that's when eyes start watering. And any makeup artist in the room will know that that is literally a makeup artist living hell when your client's eyes start watering. There's no going back. So I'm just putting that concealer on under the eyes. You can literally use that brush to put concealer wherever you feel like the skin may need a little bit of extra coverage. You can use this brush literally all over the face. And then I'm just going to set down the skin with some powder. So my favourite all-time powder is the Laura Mercier Translucent. It can be used on any skin type, whether it's dry or whether it's oily, whether it's a mature skin type. It's a fantastic powder in terms of the finish that you get from it. It's really finely milled, so it's not going to leave that powdery finish on the skin. So I'm using the F37 brush, which is like a flat headed brush. I don't like to use big massive brushes when it comes to powder, because all I ever do is put powder into the centre or into the T-zone. I don't like to put powder all over the face. So I'm just setting under the eyes as well with that Laura Mercier, setting the creamy concealer in the centre of the face along the T-zone. And like that, it's really important, I find, that you're setting your foundation, just because it gives a little bit more longevity. When you're doing bridal makeup, like that lady is like expecting her makeup to be on from 10 o'clock in the morning until whatever time she decides to go to bed. So I'm only mattifying the centre of the face. I'm leaving the outside part of the skin. And then I'm going to pop on. So I'm using the exact same brush. I love to use this brush as well for cream-based products, especially cream bronzers. This is the Chanel Soleil de Bronze. And I'm literally just going to run the brush inside the pan. And this is one of my main reasons why I don't put powder on the outside, because if I was to go and try and put cream-based products now on top of what I did, it'll start to look really cakey. It's like kind of mixing flour and water, really. If you start with the powder and then you add the liquid, it's just going to go all over the place. So I like to use this as like a base. The Soleil de Bronze is lovely on even a mature skin type, so like mother of the bride, who might not like too much bronzer, or maybe she doesn't like too much powder. She doesn't want that kind of heavy contoured look. So it's just nice just to give their skin just a bit of warmth. So I'm just literally popping that into the cheeks. And then just a little bit, not too much, just on either side, kind of up the forehead. I don't like to kind of use too much bronzer up there, because I think it gives like a really tan forehead. But when you're using cream-based products, your brush literally is like your main tool. So a brush that kind of isn't too fluffy, or that doesn't contain real hair, so something synthetic as well like that, that is going to be able to pick up the cream and it's going to be able to blend it really nicely. But then when you're dealing with powder-based products, you use something like hair-like and really, really fluffy and flexible. So I'm going to go in on top of my cream, and I'm going to use a powder bronzer, which is the Sculpted by Amy Sculpted palette. This is fantastic. Like, I use this for eye makeup and everything. And I'm going in with the F04 brush. This is more of an angled shape. Turn your head this way. So I'm just going over my cream, just in circular movements. And this is just going to set the bronzer, just making sure it's in place. So I kind of just curl it up, kind of like onto the cheekbone, and kind of up around the temples and the side of the face, so that it's just not a random floating line just in the centre, in the middle of the face. You want to give your bride like that bronze kind of look, but you don't want the bronzer to be like really orange, or you don't want it to look really dirty on the skin. That's why my choice of products. If you feel like your brushes, when you're applying any product, especially like powder-based products like contouring or blending eyeshadow, if you feel like they're dragging the product along with you, then your brush is too stiff. and I would recommend going for something a little bit more flexible. I'm going to use the same brush and apply the blusher, which is Melba by MAC. It's one of my favourite bridals. And literally just pop that on to the cheeks. So it adds just a lovely pop of colour. And again, this shade and this colour marries really, really well with that kind of rose gold bronze look. I'm going back now to my Sculpted by Amy palette, and I'm going into my cream highlighter, and I'm just going to use my finger for this. I prefer to use fingers when it comes to cream highlighters. And I'm going to add a little bit more glow just on to the temples of the skin. So just use your finger to do your blending for you. And kind of in like a half moon shape or like a C shape just around the temple. Just apply that. And just turn your head this way. So you can use cream or powder, it doesn't really matter. I find cream kind of gives the skin that gorgeous glossy kind of shine to it. But if you're a little bit nervous about using creams or you're not confident that your cream is going to last and it might kind of move throughout the day, just get like a little powder brush and just get a powder and literally just dab it just on top, and the powder is just going to set it down for you. A nice area to actually apply your powder highlighters is just like above the arch of the brow. So literally just slightly above the arches. You only need it to kind of, when the light actually hits it, that you get that lovely little shine. And then if your bride isn't very oily in her T-zone, you can pop some on the nib of the nose and just on the cupid's bow. And that brings some attention just back into the center of the face. I'm going to use the E10 brush and use the same highlighter, and I'm going to pop that into the inner corners of the eyes. So again, as I said, like this is a lovely palette as well. Like sometimes I tend to use the bronzer in the crease of the eye, and then I'll use the rose gold eyeshadow across the lid, just for like quick and handy makeup. And now I'm going to use mascara and give the lashes a bit of a lift. So this is the Flormar Spider Lash Mascara. It's so good, and it's only €4 over on their stand today. Just close your eyes there for me. So I just catch the lashes at the base of the root and just fan them out. Most brides tend to like to wear eyelashes on their wedding, but some don't if they're going for a really natural look. That's why you need a good waterproof mascara, so something that's not going to run or something that's not going to bleed kind of through onto the skin. But if you do put lashes on, a tip that I can give you is to put the lashes on first and then put the mascara on second. It just stops the eyelashes from curling, and sometimes when the eyelashes are a little bit too curly, you can find it difficult then to get the lashes placed on. Just look up there for me. I'm just using my concealer just to tidy up underneath. That's the worst thing sometimes about mascaras. Sometimes they can be a little bit too wet and then they literally hit the bottom of the eye. But that's why your little blending brush for your concealer is super handy, because it allows you to get right in to those areas. If you had a much bigger brush, you'd find it very hard to get in and it would ruin the look of your eyeshadow. And then I'm going to put some gloss on. So I'm going to use the infamous Luna by Lisa glosses. Everybody is going mad for these, and Lisa's stand is here today as well. This is a beautiful bridal shade, by the way. It's called Sapphire. And I'm just going to pop this on all over the lips. I am so more into like a glossier style lip than your matte kind of liquid lipsticks. And the Luna by Lisa lipsticks are actually great in terms of like longevity. Like creamier lipsticks definitely don't last as long as matte lipsticks. But in terms of comfort and in terms of the look, I prefer a glossier finish. So the liquid lipsticks from, or the liquid lip glosses I should say, from Luna by Lisa have a great pigment in them, and they are super long lasting, which is brilliant. So it's a great bridal. And they come in 4 in the pack, so like even if you've got 1 or 2 bridesmaids, you could give kind of 1 or 2 to your bridesmaids either. Then I'm just going to finish off with the Quick Fix Spray Hydrating Spray. Just close for me. And just give the skin a spritz. I just love to pump the skin back full of hydration again, just making sure that everything looks good. Just give those eyebrows a little brush. Keep them nice and fluffy. there we go, that's my bridal look now for spring summer. I think it's definitely going to be massively on trend this year with the rose gold and kind of the more bronze-esque kind of a look. Does anybody have any questions for me on anything? Stromboli by NARS. Stromboli, it's the best one to match in with fake tan. Like kind of it has a yellowy golden olive kind of a tone to it, so it's really nice and kind of warm looking. For what, sweetheart? You'd have to get colour matched for your own natural skin, and I tend to find a lot of tans are generally the same colour or the same tone. That's why Stromboli works for most people when they're wearing tan. I find that Gobi, are you yellow or pink toned, or do you know kind of, you're yellow, yeah, and would you be very fair like in your skin? Gobi would be what I would wear, you know, naturally day to day. But they do have lots of different shades available, so you can go in and get colour matched. They literally have a shade for everybody. They have neutral tones, warm tones, cool tones, you know, so you'll find something. But Gobi and Stromboli tend to be the two. You know, if you wear Stromboli at night, most people are Gobi. I know that Pippa O'Connor wears Gobi during the day as well. You know, so if you feel like you're kind of a similar shade to her too, it's a lovely warm kind of yellowy shade. Not too pale and not too kind of dark either. Okay? Any other questions? Anything on the brushes or any of the products that